Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 109. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here this Friday, Steelers Nation. Dave, we got a jam-packed show today with one James Harrison very much in the news.
Yeah, who knew that here we are in the offseason. It's always something, isn't it? That we're having to discuss Gilda Radner and the Rosanna Dana skit from Saturday Night Live. That's way before your time.
You're hitting me early here with the references.
Yeah, but the character, she always her catchphrase used to be, her mother telling her, "Little Rosanna Dana, it's always something," and that seems to be the case. As we get going here into the rest of the offseason with the Steelers.
That was
here.
SNL?
Yeah, that was.
What era is that?
Oh, that
like
was 70s. Yeah, that was near the start, kind of the original cast. With Bellucci and Dan Aykroyd, and of course Chevy Chase and Gilda Radner and Jane Curtin. Boy, I could just. Is
that the golden age of SNL in your mind?
There's been, obviously, throughout my life, there's been different phases. I mean, obviously the Eddie Murphy that cast and all was a extremely funny one, and you get into the Adam Sandler and
Will Ferrell,
Will Ferrell and all like that. But I mean, it's gone through stages. But look, I mean, growing up, you obviously didn't get a lot of the political humor at a younger age there, but some of the stuff was absolutely funny, as a kid in the 70s.
Well, what's less funny is what James Harrison is accusing the Steelers of, and this has been refuted by multiple people, including Art Rooney, I think people associated with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and even Harrison's agent. But just the long and short of it is that, and let me get the exact quote if I can find it here. This is Harrison talking in reference to the hit he had in, 2010.
No, 2010 on Muhammad Massaquoi. That was the I think that was the game that he knocked Massaquoi and Josh Cribbs at.
Or Cribbs, yeah.
Cribbs out in.
Yeah, and so that vicious hit that I think everyone knows and remembers. We have the article on Steelers Depot if you want to revisit it. And according to James Harrison, he says, quote, "The Gist thing Mike Tomlin ever did, he handed me an envelope after that," referring to the hit on Massaquoi. "I ain't going to say what, but he handed me an envelope after that," obviously implying that Tomlin gave Harrison some sort of money, financial compensation for the hit on Massaquoi. The Steelers have very much denied that. Art Rooney II said in a statement, quote, "I'm very certain nothing like this ever happened. I have no idea why James would make a comment like this, but there is simply no basis for believing anything like this." And Harrison's agent, Bill Parise, says that he denies this ever taking place. Quote, "We were really close during our 18 years. He would have said something along the way." So obviously really not going to be able to prove it one way or the other, but a crazy story that's dominating the Steelers news cycle.
Yeah, I kind of wonder what's in it for James here, other than, I guess, talking big with the boys, if you will. Obviously that came out with him being on the Willie Colon podcast and all on Barstool there. But here we are, nearly a decade later, and this just is now coming to surface with a guy like James Harrison, who's been known to tell a story or two here and there. I just don't know what his motivation is here. Look, I understand that he still probably has some issues with the way his final days in Pittsburgh were handled and all. Even though you go back and you look at some of the recent links that Matthew Marksey's dug up about what Colbert said, after Harrison's return, Harrison saying he wasn't supposed to be a mentor, and Colbert in so many words said it was kind of explained to him that he would be a mentor, that kind of thing. I think James heard what he wanted to hear and thought, whatever, I'll beat this little kid out or whoever you bring in, without issue there. And I'm sure probably when T.J. Watt was drafted, they probably thought probably going to take a little bit of time. and all, but he picked up the defense quickly and ended up supplanting James Harrison. And I remember writing and talking about that quite a bit that year, saying, boy, the writing on the wall's coming here with Debo and kind of his actions. And lo and behold, all these years later, more and more comes out. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was there. But back to the most recent thing that Harrison said. I mean, you obviously hope it's not true. That's not that, especially in you going back into that realm about when Bounty Gate was going on with the Saints and all like that as well too. So, as you mentioned, Art Rooney II released a statement, yesterday saying, denying that, and even Harrison's agent, which, if you would think if a guy's agent, is going to come out and say something like that, who I'm sure he's still busy occasionally booking things for Harrison. I think that might be the biggest thing to come out yesterday is Bill Parise denying this thing more so than Art Rooney II.
I agree, because obviously, from a objective point of view, or someone that's on Harrison's side, I guess, is better to say that if Rooney comes out and denies it, well, of course he's going to deny it. He's not going to admit to it publicly like that. So for Parise to, someone that would be theoretically on Harrison's side, obviously knows him very, very well, has a great relationship with him, I imagine, to deny it, I think is important. Now, obviously Parise may not, it's not guaranteed that Harrison would have told him. That's just his interpretation of it, but we'll never know the answer. I find it unlikely, this claim. And listen, I have not had a problem with much of what Harrison has said or what he's done. I don't hold a grudge. He made so many great plays for Pittsburgh that if he goes to New England, I really don't care in the grand scheme of things. But this comment is something that seems to cross the line.
Yeah, look, if you're a fan, I think you got to look at what he did during his time in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. I mean, heck, we're all going to go to our grave remembering that return for a touchdown in the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. One of the greatest plays. I mean, he's had several great games. You go back to that Baltimore game many moons ago, and the great game that he had there. Look, I mean, this guy was a force there in Pittsburgh. Now, did things go south during that, his final season there, and could he have handled himself better? And look, I guess I don't fault him for doing what he thought that he had to do to get himself out. I don't agree with it, but he wanted to play. He didn't want to ride the pine and be on the sideline as a backup there, and he evidently went to the Steelers all that season asking them to release him and whatnot, and they wouldn't, and maybe that's on the fault of this. Maybe they should just let him go, from that point forward. And yeah, you hated to see him. The team that he ran to, obviously first was the Patriots there. That kind of I know tarnished him with a large selection of the fan base, and I imagine now he's tarnishing himself a little bit with another section of the fan base as well too, and So another 10 years from now, when more of these kind of reunions happen, I don't think he's going to be thought of as much,
Yeah, no, I agree, especially with these comments about Tomlin paying him for basically knocking out Mohamed Massaquoi. That's something, again, I think is a line in the sand that you just can't cross. That's going to really jeopardize that relationship with the team. Everything else I think he could live with and fly with and even look back and laugh upon at some point 10 years from now. But that's a comment that you really can't. And yeah, to what you said about Harrison wanting out and all the reports at the time, he says, quote, "I would try to do whatever I could. Like I wouldn't do nothing in practice. I would be like, I'm hurt. So I started doing the, oh yeah, my back hurts, and then go in the weight room and squat 600 pounds and then don't practice." So clearly describing the way he forced his way out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I remember writing and talking about that at a time and saying something's up here.
Yep.
I sent, my tinfoil hat was absolutely right that time. But and look, I mean, once again, I understand a lot of people being upset with the way that went down and him going to the Patriots. I get all that, but I think I think especially if this is not true, what he's saying about the whole envelope thing, and I mean, we're talking $75,000 there. I mean, you think I just can't see Tomlin risking, that by paying the man $75,000, and I just can't see Tomlin being the kind of guy that would put a bounty, Now Greg Williams, hell yeah, I could see Greg Williams being a kind of guy that would put a bounty on a guy. I mean, that guy would say and do anything to get his troops fired up and all like that. It doesn't mean I dislike Greg Williams any more or less, but I just think that's a huge black mark on him for all that happened. Then I just find it. Look, I mean, it's he said, she said, right? At this point, and we had Art Rooney come out and say, deny it. And once again, I think it goes back to, I think the even more important denial here is Bill Parise, Harrison's agent. And now it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Harrison's hot news right now. You got to figure he's going to get back on this swing on First Take and Last Take and Intermediate Take and all these shows, and at least get on there and ask about it. And it'd be interesting to hear how much further he takes this.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's no sports going on right now, and so Harrison throwing this story out there is a lot of meat for the sports world to talk about. Not to defend Harrison, because I'm not trying to defend Harrison, and I believe that it's very unlikely that Tomlin did what Harrison is alleging him to have done. I suppose, though, it's not necessarily that Tomlin would have had a bounty if we accept Harrison's claim. It might have just been, okay, we know you had this hit. We know you're going to get fined for it. We're going to pay your fine for it because, whatever reason they wanted to. So I guess it's not necessarily that there was a bounty on Massaquoi. It could have just been they were just trying to pay Harrison's fine.
I mean, look, through all, it sure felt at the time that Harrison was getting picked on a little bit, Right.
And then that's, the theory, I guess, is he got fined a lot back then when the NFL started cracking down because of James Harrison. And so I guess that could be the motivation. Right.
Maybe, the defense of your player is, we feel for you, but even so, I think it's pretty specific that the players that they can't be Look, you're talking into getting into salary cap violations at that point, paying giving players money outside of what's contractually obligated and all.
Yeah, I'm not saying it'd be right. I'm just saying I think there's a big difference between a bounty versus just trying to pay a dude's fine.
Yeah, and look, it's so kind of still. We're trying to read kind of, it's an innuendo, right? More than anything, he says, gives me an envelope. Well, he doesn't say what's in the envelope. And there's still details that we're lacking here. Obviously it's easy to put the one and one together here.
Yeah, because how did the $75,000 come up? Because Harrison never even says it's money, although we can obviously assume that it is in his story.
I don't know. I had to go back and listen to that part of that podcast.
Okay. Anyway, obviously, we're probably never going to know the truth completely unless someone admits it on either side. I doubt the story. If it did happen, though, I don't think it'd be from a bounty standpoint, just trying to pay a dude's fine, because I'm sure the Steelers thought what was happening to Harrison was unfair from what the league was doing to him.
And look, I don't know if the league's going, obviously you got guys like Mike Florio going to stir this stuff up and others too, as this thing probably cycles through the complete media tour round or what have you this next week and all. I don't know what the league's supposed to say about this and do about it 10 years later, and what they would even find and what the repercussions would be if they even found something.
Right. I know. Yeah. The reports are the league's unlikely to look into it, but who knows with the league and the pace that they work. Maybe they will. I have no idea.
What's the statute? What's the statute of limitations? Is it 7 years? I
don't know.
I don't know there, but I don't think this is the last time you and I are talking about this, Alex.
Unfortunately, I agree. And again, I like Debo. I want all the good in his Steelers career to outweigh all the negative about how things ended. But these comments like this, and I'm guessing he's going to be asked to tell this story again. I'm sure he'll voluntarily tell the story again. Really is going to damage that relationship between him, the team, and the fan base. So we'll see what happens going forward. But I agree. You've probably not heard the last of James Harrison.
Is there any ounce of it? That you would, that you believe?
Of
what he has said, yeah.
Well, I believe all this stuff about obviously how things ended and how he forced his way out and all that.
Sure.
I'm not going to say there's no chance that Tomlin gave him money. Again, I don't think it would be for a bounty. I just think it would be, listen, man, you're getting screwed by the league. They're cracking down. They're changing rules. They're fining you a ton of money. This is crazy. We know you didn't try to hurt the guy. We're just going to cover it for you.
Yeah.
How much was he even getting paid that year? He wasn't getting paid the money that he was in the prime of his career.
Yeah, wasn't that contract like
1-year deals? He was going year by year.
Or wasn't that the 2-year, 2 point? I forget what it was. But yeah, he wasn't making a massive amount of money. So I don't know, was it a wink wink, we got you,
Yeah.
But even so, you would think if there was a flat, I don't know. There would be bank records for that kind of money, right? I mean, you just don't go. Do you withdraw $75,000 in cash and put it in an envelope, or do you write a check? In the memo section, happy birthday.
Yeah, when is James Harrison's birthday?
Yeah. Grandma sent me a $75,000 check.
Grandma's rainy day, $75,000 fine. Yeah, those are above my pay grade. Again, I don't believe this story, but if I were to believe it, that's a scenario where I think it would play out.
I mean, geez, you see these people. Heck, they could have had a GoFundMe raise more than that.
I'll search GoFundMe. I'll search James Harrison. That's quite fine. Yeah. I mean, have teams paid players fines before? I'm sure that's happened. Not for maybe this particular circumstance, but I don't think that's beyond the pale.
I would be shocked if it hasn't happened in some capacity.
Right.
All throughout the eons, but right. I can't sit here and name off an instance. No.
Yeah, I'd have to look. Anyway, again, not the last we'll hear from it. I'm sure the media cycle will have fun with this one for the next 24, 48 hours. But yeah, that's your Debo update. And I guess if there's any silver lining, gives us something to talk about here in the middle of May.
Yeah, but I know you and I don't like talking about that kind of. I mean, we're kind of forced into talking about that kind of stuff, unfortunately. But here we are.
Well, let's talk some football then. Mike Tomlin had a conference call on Steelers Nation Unite with the fans, which is always an interesting way things go in terms of the questions. But I think some of the questions had some merit and some value, so we'll go through and hit some of the highlights of that conversation. Tomlin, of course, asked about Ben's health and his rehab recovery, basically just echoing all the things that Colbert and the organization have talked about over the last 5 months or so. Quote, he's doing great thus far. He's in great physical condition. Rehabilitation in regard to the injury itself is going well. I hear nothing but positive reports from that standpoint. So obviously a little dig to it about the physical condition and all the Jay Glazer stupid stuff we talked about last week. And again, reiterating that his rehab and recovery is going well.
Yeah, and I like how he kind of started the first response to that saying he's in great physical condition. That's an obvious...
A little dig.
Yeah, an obvious jab back at Jay Glazer. Look, we didn't learn anything new there, and but that's as I wrote in the post when I wrote it up last night, saying I hope you're ready for your daily Roethlisberger health update, because Mike Tomlin provided one for you anyway. Until we have reason to be concerned, we have no reason to be concerned. So
exactly,
look, there's not going to be any on the field OTA practices. Not going to be or it doesn't look like there's going to be mandatory mini camp and all. So we're just going to sit here and sit on our hands and wait and see what happens when Ben gets going during training camp. And they still have 5 total quarterbacks on the roster. I don't see that changing anytime soon. You would think that if it would have changed, it would have changed. What did we say? Like after they get these undrafted guys signed or whatnot, a week or two past the draft. If a guy like J.T. Barrett's still on the roster, odds are probably good he's going to last until training camp on the roster. So that would, and if indeed that's the case, then they're going to probably severely alter Roethlisberger's already kind of muted schedule, if you will, and probably really ease him into things come training camp time. But until then, I mean, unless we have any reason to think to the otherwise, he's going to be fine.
Yeah, obviously the whole pandemic has, I think, thrown a wrench into the plans about quarterback. Obviously, by now, Ben really supposed to be throwing or close to throwing, where you could really evaluate him. That's why I thought JT Barrett would really just get carried to rookie minicamp because
he is throwing. He said he's throwing. He's throwing.
Yeah, well, I mean, throwing in a setting where they can see him and like NFL throws and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think they're just gonna carry Barrett until they have the chance to see Ben and go through that process and make sure that he's good to go and he's feeling good. So we'll see, but. And then talking about the backup situation, quote.
Let me ask you real quick about that. I mean, we're not there. We don't know with his rehab and his trainer or whatnot. What's being set up as part of those? Are they filming those throws? Are they using one of those balls with the velocity chips in them? You would think that they were. I guess what I'm getting at is you just don't think that the Steelers are also just sitting on their hands, not knowing certain aspects of what's going on with Roethlisberger throughout this thing, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Colbert made a comment a couple weeks ago about how we really haven't seen Ben throw. I don't know if he meant that in a literal sense, as in we haven't seen him in person, or if he just really hasn't gotten. I'm sure they're getting some information, but I don't know. I'm not convinced that Ben is videotaping all of his throws and sending them out to the Steelers.
You mean, it should be easy to set up an Uncle Rico kind of situation.
Over the mountains.
Just set up the camera there. And, you would think some level of this, at least I would hope, some aspect of what Ben is doing, maybe not on a day-by-day basis, but some aspect of a weekly information flow is making its way back to the Steelers. At least I would hope so. I mean, heck, you got these balls that they use at the combine, right? With these chips that have velocity and rotations and speed. I mean, surely you can work out some sort of aspect with that. And heck, there's enough money that you should be able to videotape these things, so at least a trainer or whatever could make sure he's not doing something that's going to damage his elbow. Maybe that's just me thinking too much, but anyway.
Well, I believe there's dialogue. I just don't know if it's like concrete. I'm sure they set up a schedule and he's giving feedback about what he's doing for his rehab and how he feels. But Ben's admitted he's not really made an NFL throw yet in terms of the velocity or zip on the football. So you could put the chip in the ball and get the velocity on it, but if he's not making those types of throws, I don't know how much information you're getting right now.
Yeah, but wouldn't you like to know at least what kind of throws he's making as part of that rehab, making sure he's not going? Oh, you see what I'm getting at? These are the next level questions that you and I would ask instead of asking Tomlin. Instead of asking Tomlin if he's watching Netflix during quarantine, or some of these other silly questions that the media keeps rehashing with them every time they get Colbert and Tomlin on. Repackaged damn questions where this is the kind of stuff I think I know I would be interested in hearing. You probably would, and probably a good portion of our listenership would as well too, because after all, we have the smartest listeners, right?
We do. We'll pander. We're not above that. our base. It's a good question, and I don't have obviously an answer for you. I'm sure there's some sort of information being shared. I just don't know exactly how much it is. And does Ben have the guys down in wherever right now? Did I see that clip? Or is that
no? Well, look, we're left to speculate, and Lord knows I love doing kind of just that. But JuJu posted on his TikTok account. Who knew that the words TikTok account would be a thing?
2020, what a world, what a time.
Twitter and TikTok are things that we're monitoring and discussing. But JuJu had a video on there of him at Ben's house. So either he broke in or whatever, using the pool or whatever, or maybe he was just there. It's kind of a throwing session. We don't know. So it's fun to think about. Maybe that is what happened, but we don't know.
Yeah, right. But to the backup situation, again, really nothing earth-shattering from Tomlin here. He says, quote, "We have some candidates. Mason Rudolph had an opportunity to gain some experience last year. That's one way to put it. We expect him to be better. He expects to be better. We are comfortable with the mix we have right now, not that we are opposed to get better at any position as we proceed, if that makes sense to us." He also mentions Duck and Paxton Lynch, but we know that Mason's going to be the backup, the number two, and for me, I think it's make or break for Mason Rudolph this year.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some section of media that will focus on the phrasing there
that last part
as we're positioned here today. Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback. You know, I'm sure several will read way too much into that. Look, Kevin Colbert once again put the kibosh on this whole quarterback thing the other day in another interview and all like that. I mean, that's not going to stop these people from still trying to get Cam Newton to land.
I don't know why they keep asking him. I honestly don't know. Are they not paying attention to the fact he's answered this 7 times already?
I don't know. You know, NFL Network, LaDainian Tomlinson, all these from major media to local media, they keep trying to put Cam Newton in there, and they don't understand why we won't get behind it or write about it or push it.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's the answer from Tomlin. Rudolph the backup. We know the Duck and Paxton are going to fight for the number 3 spots. Anything else from Tomlin? What else from Tomlin stuck out? I talked about being excited about Devin Bush his sophomore year, and also mentioned Justin Lane, being excited about him in year number 2.
Yeah, I mean, you wrote that up. Read that quote off about Lane.
Mm-hmm. He says, quote, "We are really excited about cornerback Justin Lane in the same way. He was a rookie a year ago, was inactive early on, carved out a role for himself as a special teamer. He's going through the natural participation, developmental process. Really distinguished himself in a positive way in a practice setting over the second half of the year. Those are usually signs the guy is going to take a step in his second year," end quote. So I love the phrase. Use this a lot. Participation, developmental process. That is a Tomlinism if I've ever heard one. But yeah, Lane obviously got the hat the back half of last year, took Artie's spot as a gunner, did relatively well. Obviously still a long ways to go, but as they always talk about that sophomore leap, Lane was supposed to be a senior last year, supposed to be his rookie year this year because he came out a year early. This will be a big season to show if he's can make that jump that this team always talks about.
And I can't remember, was it didn't he have? Did he talk about Gilbert yesterday in there as well too?
I don't
or was
believe
it Colbert?
so.
Maybe it was Colbert that talked about him.
Yeah.
The day earlier. So maybe at some point one of us will write that up. I think he didn't say much. Just that he is a guy that they obviously hoping can take the next step this year. Talking about UG3 and look, I mean, there's several guys we've talked about, young guys, and Mike Tomlin always usually and when it gets to OTA press conferences or training camp press conferences, always talking about the group of second-year guys, expecting them to make the jump. And once again, you got quite a few of them this year, right? You got Deontay Johnson, you got UG3, you got Isaiah Buggs, Justin Lane. Benny Snell. I mean, you got a huge group of them, and I think this continues to go back to about kind of tying it all into the coronavirus pandemic and stuff too, and things that we've mentioned several times, and maybe it's kind of a homerish take, if you will, but I really think all this sets up good for the Steelers from a veteran team aspect, because these younger players that we just named off here, mostly from the draft class last year, they're not rookies anymore. Okay, They should know what's going on. So even with kind of a different offseason, so to speak, you would expect to see some degree of jump by them because of the familiarity alone. And when you look at this team as a whole, I think we've recapped several times. We don't expect this rookie class to contribute much, barring injury, outside of maybe some special teams and some red zone stuff. Maybe out of Claypool and a handful of carries here and there for McFarland, but as a whole, assuming this team stays healthy, I think this team's going to have an advantage over other teams, definitely on their schedule, because of the sheer fact that they're probably going to be more in tune with each other, and especially early on in the season.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I bet there are very few teams. There are some like New Orleans and New England, but very few teams that have the same head coach / general manager that they had in the 2011 season during that lockout year. So you have Tomlin and Colbert. They've been through this process before, obviously under very much different circumstances, though actually you can work with these guys more than you could in the 2011 lockout, where you couldn't work with them at all because everyone was on strike. So this is a team that's kind of been there, done that, can rely on that experience. As you said, kind of a veteran team that isn't relying on any rookie, at least to come in and be the guy right away. And that's going to, I think, prove very valuable this season. And I think,
one other thing that Tomlin said yesterday, and it's the kind of thing you would expect to come out of his mouth. He was asked about what kind of first year rookie, or what kind of production impact. Yeah, Chase Claypool could make in his rookie season, and he says he's not going to pigeonhole him. He'll he says I'm not going to thoughtfully place him behind anybody. He'll have a chance to come in and carve out a significant role for himself. I mean. That's what you're supposed to say. I mean, especially with this younger depth chart anyway. Now, come week 1, do we expect Chase Claypool to be out there, in 2 wide receiver sets or even in 3 wide receiver sets quite a bit right out of the chute? No. I mean, but I mean, I don't think it's out of the question that you could see him in red zone and maybe some certain third down situations, for sure, if he moves along, as you would hope he would.
Yeah, even some super tight, 22 personnel 1 wide receiver sets where they had Johnny Holton there last year. I think and this is supposed to be a compliment in some sense. I know Holton had a terrible year last year, but he's kind of like the Johnny Holton for this year. He's going to be the big body blocker, a vertical threat, and a big gunner on the punt team, and that's kind of going to be his role year 1.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that Tomlin said that stuck out? Oh, featured runner.
I was just going to go there.
Yeah, what'd you think about that? Because I think that's going to send us down another rabbit hole here. So make sure to set it up properly here.
Yeah, let me tee this one up. No, I think this is a comment that we're going to talk about there's 3 straight years every time during draft time or free agency. Yeah, I think this is actually the most interesting thing that Tomlin had to say. Not that that's the most shocking news in the world, but talking about the running back situation. Is it going to be committee? Is it going to be a guy? And Tomlin says, quote, "I'm a feature runner type guy by mentality. I think that if you have a featured runner, it gives them an opportunity to drop a stake in the ground and allows others to rally around him. It gives you a set of core phase run plays that he specializes in, and you find a rhythm in that way." He does go on to talk about the need to supplement those guys and have complements and backup plans in case of injuries that inevitably do happen. But Tomlin, very much in the dying minority feature runner type running back mentality.
Have we ever heard him say anything along those lines before? I mean, maybe we have, and just time's gotten away from us. But have we ever heard him come out and really say, "I'm a featured runner type guy"?
I don't remember. Maybe not in those clear, strong terms. I'd have to go back and try to look, though. I'm sure he's made some pass to it before.
Now, technically, he goes on to say, look, in so many words, James is our featured runner and a proven guy when healthy, and we're excited about him getting back to health and displaying that in 2020. I mean, we would expect anyway to, after the dust settles as we get into week 1, that James Conner is going to be the primary back, right? I mean, that's not a surprise.
Right. Yeah. No surprise at all.
But I think where maybe there's some reason to maybe talk here is, look, I understand the optimism about James Conner. I understand the great season that he had in 2018. A lot of things that we talked about this offseason leading up to the draft, right? Thinking that they're pretty happy overall in general with the top of their running back depth chart, and why we didn't think it was smart to invest a second or third round draft pick in the position, and that if they didn't do that, then they shouldn't address it at all, yada, yada. Okay. Let me ask you this, and I wrote about this, and we're going to start tying these pieces together here, I think. What is the idea? Okay. Tomlin said he's a featured runner type guy, all right, and Colbert has continuously said, sometimes unsolicited throughout the offseason, those were acute injuries that James Conner has dealt with, or at least dealt with last year. Expect him back healthy and be the 2018 James Conner, blah, blah, blah. Even if Conner comes out of shooting and kind of stays there, what kind of touch load, this is where I'm going with this, what kind of touch load would you expect featured runner type guy to get?
Just in general,
you're
considered a feature runner. I would say 20 to 25 a game.
Touches, right?
Touches, yeah.
Okay.
So 20 carries, 5 receptions, 15-7, something like that.
That's what you conjure up thinking Tomlin's thinking he has in store right now for James Conner.
Well, when I think of the term feature runner, I think someone that's the guy that's playing the majority of the time. So, yeah, that's kind of where I come in on, and I imagine that's their mentality as well.
How many touches did Conner have back in 2018? And obviously he missed, 3.5 or 2.5 games?
Ankle sprain. Let me
What do you have,
look. He had
270 or it wasn't 300?
no, it was 270 on the dot.
270, right? Okay.
Yeah, in 13 games, that's 20.7 touches a game.
How shocked will you be if Connor comes close for whatever reason? All right. How shocked will you be if Connor comes close to even hitting 270 touches in 2020?
I'm not going to be floored by it because we know how talented this guy is when he's healthy. I know that that's always the caveat. I say that every single time. I sound like a broken record, but we do have to recognize how talented this guy is whenever he is available. This guy can be a 3-down back. He's proven that. We have to remember how good this guy was in 2018 before he got tripped up by that ankle sprain. So I'm not going to be shocked by it all. It's all the question is basically how much do you trust him to stay healthy? And that confidence is relatively low just given the history of it. But if he can do that, then he has the talent to more than definitely surpassed 270 total touches.
All right. I view it as his ceiling being, and I wrote about this yesterday, I view Connor's ceiling being at 200 total touches. Do you
Even
think
if he's healthy all 16 games?
I'm basing that on him playing 15 games. 15 to 16 games. I just think, what's that, 12 and a half, 13?
Yeah. If he's healthy, I think it's higher than that.
Because aren't you going to want to, because of his history, and because you have a guy like McFarland now, because you really have, and in so many words, Tomlin called Benny Snell kind of a James Conner clone, right?
In some sense, yeah. Benny Snell's a guy who plays with a physical style in a similar manner as James and might be capable of being a James-type guy if James is unavailable.
Okay. To me,
not the most ringing endorsement in that sense.
No, but you spent a damn fourth round draft.
You're never going to stop talking about that.
No. Look, I know it's sunk costs, blah blah blah. But damn it, you keep drafting all these running backs. I mean, instead of going other directions with them, you better at least use them in some capacity. And look, I think we both agree. There were spots last year with Snell where you were wondering, man, just start the kid and give him some carries, get him going, because it looked like it looked like he kind of got warmed up early in games. He was producing there,
Right.
Now is the jury still out on Benny Snell Jr.? Absolutely. I mean, we can't say, look, he doesn't have that 2018 James Conner in his season in his back pocket that we can look at there. We've seen James Conner do what he can do on 270 carries when healthy. All right. I guess what I'm getting at here is, to me, all right, you want James to be your featured runner? Let him be your featured runner, but let's make that featured runner be 15 to 20 touches a game. Okay?
But then I think he's not your feature runner.
Huh?
I don't think he's a feature runner if you only give him 13 to 15 touches a game.
Well, where's the chart that tells me what a feature runner has to get? To me, if he gets more touches than any other else, he's a feature runner.
I just have a different mentality. I think Tomlin would have the different mentality. I think feature runner is the guy when Tomlin says, you want someone that can put a stake in the ground or whatever he said. Like, that's the guy that's going to play more than 60% of the time or 45% of the time, whatever the number is.
Now, I understand. Look, if there's any back right now that they trust in the backfield as far as pass protection goes and doing it right, it's obviously James Conner. But you would hope that by the time training camp ends, Benny Snell will have a little bit more experience in that aspect. Jalen Samuels, we'll see if he even makes the roster here. And while there were some improvements, I think you could say last year, there were some scratch-the-head moments too where I think he missed,
Yep.
I don't think he's ever going to be great at it. Definitely not as good as Conner or maybe what Snell can become. And look, McFarland's still an unknown quantity in that department as well too. I just think, okay, you want to start off with I think maybe you come out of shoot with Conner being your featured guy type runner mentality, but I think you got to start backing off of that for everybody's good as the season progresses.
Well, if he's running well, though, and I imagine he would be when he's healthy and he's out there, then it's hard to back off of that if it's going well.
Well, You know, in NASCAR races, the car was running good until we blew an engine. Well, yeah.
This is where you thank your sponsors.
Yeah, yeah. The Coca-Cola James Conner 2018 James Conner was running well until we lost an engine there. Well, yeah, it was running well until you lost an engine. No, I mean, and it's not a slap at James Conner. I'm just saying I think you're just best served to kind of. I'm not saying go full-fledged running back by committee, but I think you just need to be thoughtfully rhythmic or non-rhythmic, I guess, would be. I think that needs to be kind of loosened up a little bit, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I think it was a good discussion you had about it, and I want to see those guys get involved. Let me play devil's advocate, though, and say this is – regardless of what kind of season James Conner has, even if he has a best-case scenario season, this is likely his final year in Pittsburgh. Is that fair to say?
And this is exactly where I was hoping this would go here with this conversation. So kudos to you. I also wrote about yesterday detailing the plausibility of 2020 being Conner's final season. This was this got finished like an hour before Tomlin said what he said. I think we both agree that we will be shocked if James Conner has a new contract in place by the time the 2020 season starts. Correct?
Correct.
I mean, there's no. We will be both. We both agree. We both be floored if he has a new contract in place by the start of 2020.
I'm not expecting it. It's just the way that I would frame it.
Okay, now let's say he hits at least that ceiling of 200, at least 200 touches throughout the 2020 season. Okay, at least that he's going to have at least 1,000 yards from scrimmage to show for it, right? You would hope. I mean,
yeah, he better.
I mean, if you're touching the ball 200 touches, you would think that's 5 yards a touch. I don't think that's asking too. What was his per touch average in 2018? Wasn't it like 5.8 or something?
Let me pull it up.
5.7, 5.8 is my memory.
It better be more than 5. I mean, I'm sure it was. Let's see, 5.4.
Okay, 5.4. That's a little low, technically, I guess. But all right. I mean, you would hope that it's at least that. What's 200 touches times 5.4? 1080 or something?
Yeah, 1080. Yep, good math.
I mean, you would hope that if he touches the football 200 times, he at least has almost 1,100 yards from scrimmage, right?
Correct.
All right. What if he hits that and that's it? 200 touches. 1,100 yards. He misses just one game with whatever. All right. What's his value going to be at that point? Because let me set this up for you even better. Last year there were 26 running backs in the NFL that posted 1,000 or more yards from scrimmage. All right. Okay. So Conner hitting 1,000 yards from scrimmage in 2020 won't be a stop the presses moment, right?
Absolutely.
All right, but what if he hits 1,400 yards from scrimmage like he did in 2018? That's more of a stop the presses moment, right?
Yeah, then he had a really good season. Then, of course, that probably means he was played at least 14 games.
Okay. So anywhere in there. So give me a low market value of him hitting those 200 touches for 1,000 yards, or him having 260, 70 touches for 1,400 yards.
And you're asking me to give a monetary value to him?
A post-season, because we're both admitting that we don't think he's going to have a new contract in hand.
Right.
So what's his assuming even on the low end, what I put out there, 200, what is his low market value per year after the 2020 season?
I'm not sure, and the running back market is so kind of crazy right now. If it's on the low end of that 200 touch scenario, I would say somewhere in that 3 to 4 million range, maybe on a 1 or 2 year kind of prove it type deal. On the high end of things, you could be looking at, and again, I'm not really paying attention to the market right now, 6 to 7 million. You probably know the numbers better than I would, though.
Well, I mean, and it's not set in stone, right? I mean,
Sure.
look, I mean, if there's one thing that, if there's one position that the market went up recently and is starting to come back down, it's there. But I mean, you've got guys like Kenyon Drake, 8.4, averaging 8.4 a year. Melvin Gordon, $8 million a year. Leonard Fournette, he's still, I mean, until he's not with the Jaguars, he's $6.8 million. You got a guy like Austin Eckler earning over $6 million a year. Todd Gurley, $5.5 million with the Falcons right now. You got a guy like Duke Johnson, $5.2 million a year. All right, so I mean, you would have to think if a guy like James Conner touches the ball 200 times, has at least 1,000 yards, his market value is at least going to be $5 million, right?
Well, it would just be dependent on how much time did he miss in that. Did he miss 4 games and just played well with the touches he had? And it's just hard to say because the health is the big concern, and teams that want to make these kinds of investments, they are already worried about health with guys that are durable and have proven durability, and they're more worried about it with guys that have durability questions.
Right, but okay, I mean, I'll set you up and I'll give you another best case scenario. I mean, if he's touching the ball 200 times for 1,000 yards, he's at least played in 13 whatever games. 14 games?
I don't know. I mean, how many touches did he have last year? 150. So yeah, okay. If he gets 200 touches, he's probably playing 12, 13 games.
All right, let's assume whatever he suffers isn't cataclysmic again, knee or whatever, okay? I mean, we're trying to I'm trying to paint a feasible, scenario here with him.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you answer the question in terms of the low and high end? I'm
trying to tell you, I'm thinking at least $5 million per year is his low end.
Okay. And on the high end?
I mean, 8 to 9, I would think, and obviously if he has a repeat of 2018 season, maybe it's even higher. And he stays healthy all 16 games, and good pass protector, and he's a feature runner type guy.
Sure.
So I mean, now obviously if he's not hitting any of those marks and he misses 6 games and he gets another 150 touches and just basically a repeat, let's say of 2019, then his market value is obviously what, 2 to 3 million.
Just a prove it deal.
All right, and then do you even want that kind of guy back?
No. I think most scenarios point to him walking, whether it's a bad year or a good year. But what I was going to say earlier was, knowing that this is likely his last year, I don't want to use the old, what was that with Willie Parker?
Run the wheels off. Yeah.
What do you got to lose at this point? You work him, and if he gets hurt, then you find your backups and you work with them. Or if he stays healthy, then awesome. Then you're going to get really good production out of him. So it's like there's no risk in this. It's not like you sign him to a 6-year deal, 5-year deal, Le'Veon Bell type contract, and you're worried about managing his reps or anything. If he's gone, he's gone. Run the wheels off him.
Sure, I get that. My old analogy, just throw them on the pile. Yeah, but
and what's the downside there, if you're from the team standpoint?
I just think that I think having James Conner as part of your stable throughout the entire season is better than having James Conner for just a quarter of the season.
I understand that, but it's not like a Todd Gurley situation where he just has a bad knee, where like his workload is dependent on having that arthritic knee. His injuries, to steal the Colbert term, have been acute. So just random things. Like that ankle sprain, unpredictable. Could happen on your first carry, could happen on your 200th carry. You don't know. The shoulder injury last year happened like the last minute of the game against Miami. Could happen on the first carry, could happen on the last carry. It's not a thing that's this constant problem where he's got a bad knee or a bad shoulder or something like that that's going to always be plaguing him. So I think it's one of those things where you just can't predict if it's going to happen or not, and you might as well just run with him and see what happens.
My ideal scenario in my head up until Tomlin talked yesterday was 14 to 15 touches a game for Conner. Now, obviously, maybe a little bit higher earlier in the season. Get Benny Snell in for a series, maybe even 2, one series early. Maybe when you get to that quarter pole mark, you start getting them. Maybe Benny Snell in for a series or two, and then somewhere in there, you're going to have to. I think you have the responsibility of working McFarland in somehow.
Right.
Five touches a game might be hard to do, but 3 to 4, give him an opportunity to get the ball in space so we can see him create that home run. I think you have an obligation to do that. So, in a perfect world where a running back gets, what's the ideal touches for a running back when you're winning? 25 to, and I'm talking total running back touches in the game, 25 to 35.
Yeah, depending on the game flow exactly, but yeah, 25 to 30 is the number I would put in mind.
Right. Surely you can do something along those lines, and as the season goes on, maybe you have Connor more about an 18 per touch guy, and then you bring a guy in like Benny Snell in the fourth quarter to finish them.
Like that a Mortal Kombat reference,
right? Look, the 2019 Coca-Cola James Conner was running fine in that Miami Dolphins game until the shoulder blew up, right?
Right.
In the fourth
quarter. But it's unpredictable. You just ran a freaky fluke thing.
All right, acute. Okay.
Yeah, acute. I'm sure this will inevitably.
You see where I'm going here, though.
Sure, absolutely.
I think I think you can have potentially the best of both worlds here if you manage Connor properly, and if Benny Snell can be counted on, and if McFarland can come along nicely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for all this, guys. I'm sure this will inevitably lead to us talking about some sort of pony backfield this summer that will never materialize during the regular season.
Yeah,
That's what happens every single year.
I told you what's going to happen last year. I told you. And look, I would like to see that 3 or 4 snaps a game. Who wouldn't? But I knew it wasn't going to materialize for whatever reason last year. I knew it wasn't going to materialize, and I said as much, right? But
no,
anyway.
You did. I think the other interesting question, I was talking this in the comment section on Steelers Deep the other day, is what's their mentality going to be for next year's draft? I don't mean to put the cart before the horse, but Connor's going to still be the guy this year, and if he stays relatively healthy, then McFarland and Snell won't play a whole lot. So you're still going to be, assuming Connor's gone after this year, you're going to have kind of still floaty, vague, gray area information on McFarland, Snell. Are they the guy? Are they not? So do you go find the feature type guy in next year's draft? Do you roll with McFarland, Snell? Do you do another mid-round draft pick like they've been so accustomed to doing? I think they're going to be in this weird spot next year, not knowing what direction to take their backfield.
Are you trying to just push my buttons or something today, or trying to send me over the edge or something like that?
I think it's a good discussion.
Can you visualize me face palming right now?
What's the Spock? Is that Spock? The GIF of him face palming?
Picard.
Picard.
Yeah.
This is out of my wheelhouse right now.
And look, I'm not a Star Trek geek. I'm old school, Star Trek.
You Star Wars?
I'm definitely Star Wars. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I grew up. When Star Wars came out, that was what 70. What was that? 76, 78. 78. How old was I? 11, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, that's perfect for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the action figures, all that, man. Yeah, I was all up in that. But anyway, man, I don't want to think about this team having to draft yet another running back in the top 4 rounds next year.
If you're sitting there,
you gonna make me address that right now?
Yeah, no one knows, and obviously we'll have the season to start to figure that out. But I imagine what's likely to happen is that Connor will play relatively well. He'll miss a little bit of time. McFarland, Snell, they're going to have their moments, but they're not going to be 200 touch type guys. You're going to have limited information on them, and this team's going to have to figure out what they want to do. Do you want to roll with McFarland, Snell? Do you want to find your feature type guy? I have no idea what their approach is going to be. And that's one reason why I was opposed to this mid-round pick of a running back. Not that McFarland's a bad player. We like his talent. We think he can make an impact. But it's going to put you in this gray area where are you in or you out?
Yeah. I was holding hands with you.
Yeah. So I don't know. We don't have the answers to that question. My first initial reaction is that they're going to try to find the guy next year, that feature runner type that Tomlin talks about. But we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens indeed, but it's going to be interesting now, obviously, just to see how this how this plays out now with and I think it was a good, and look, we'll have more of this conversation, I'm sure, about what the workload and distribution and all will look like moving forward there. But I think that's my ideal kind of situation there.
Two other quick things with Tomlin I want to hit on. Talked about Stephon Tuitt's health. I think did we mention that Friday? Like, we didn't know what his situation was, and then Tomlin gets asked about it. So says, quote, Stephon is doing really well. Like I mentioned with Ben earlier, his injury occurred at the early portion of the season. As miserable as it made him and us in 2019, it kind of bodes well for readiness in 2020. We expect Stephon to be ready to go. We are excited to have him and his talents back. And again, I echo those thoughts because this dude played so well last year.
Yeah, he really did. And once again, now was he the MVP, actual MVP, maybe of the defense? Five games into it. I mean, Minka was on the scene making the noise by then. But you could probably make the argument that he could have been maybe co-defensive MVP at that point because he really was playing good. Now, obviously, that this team went through. The loss of Hargrave this offseason. We've had numerous talks about the what they're going to do at the nose tackle position for 28 to 30% of those snaps this year. But I really think having a healthy Tuitt back along with Hayward and that rotation that they've got together is certainly won't hurt. And if Tuitt's able to pick up where he left off last year and stay healthy this time along the process. I really think this defense, along with the back end staying healthy, and obviously with Dupree and Watt doing their thing, I think this defense has a chance to be able to get after the quarterback again.
Yeah, I mean, they have led the league in sacks for 3 straight years, I believe, so they should be able to do it again without losing a whole lot of key pieces in that area. Tomlin also asked about nose tackle, and we mentioned that the other day with Colbert, right, talking about nose tackle. So just to get Tomlin's thoughts on it, he mentions Dan McCullers has been the backup at the position for a number of years. Quote, we drafted a young man, Carlos Davis, out of Nebraska, who has some talent in that area, and then mentions Tyson Alulu as a veteran guy who's position flexible. So he mentions McCullers, Carlos Davis, and Tyson Alulu as potential nose tackle replacements and candidates.
Yeah, we'll see how that's something else we'll be talking about. We've spent enough time on that recently, I think.
Yeah, I just wanted to at least mention that with Tomlin. Really nothing else to talk about there. So anything else on Tomlin you wanted to talk about?
I think we got most of it. If not, we'll mop up the rest of it. I think next Tuesday when we talk and all. One other thing, I wrote about James Conner there and looking forward the plausibility of him not being back in 2021. The day earlier, I wrote about JuJu and the plausibility of that as well too. So what did you think about that, and where do you stand on JuJu right now?
Yeah, no, I think you laid it out well, the pros and cons and the possibilities. I still expect JuJu. I'm confident in, not guaranteeing, but I'm confident he's going to have a bounce back here, have a really good season. That obviously is going to drive up his value again. That could lead to the tag, as you've talked about, or a long-term deal. But I'm not in the mentality of he's gone, he's not coming back, this is his last year for him, as many in the media are projecting.
I think when you look at it, I mean, he, as much as we think that, or at least I think that there's no chance Conner gets a new deal before the start of regular season, I think there's a minute chance maybe JuJu does. I obviously wouldn't bet anything on that. But let's say you don't get Bud Dupree done but by the deadline in middle of July, okay? Mm-hmm. And let's say you do that Cameron Hayward, I mean, I will be shocked if Cameron Hayward does not have a deal in place by week 1. I think you would say that as well, right?
Yeah, I'm expecting a long-term deal for Hayward before the season starts.
And Dupree could go either way at this point. But let's say Bud Dupree does not get a deal done. Hayward does, and let's say Hayward's cap number drops $3.5 million because of that deal. What is the chance that JuJu maybe can get wedged in there at some point? And obviously it's going to come down to price. I mean, because I think we both agree there's no reason for JuJu to accept an extremely a deal that would leave him way out of the top 10 or top 15. Let's say top 15, because $13 million to me. JuJu should not accept a deal for less than $13 million a season. Would you agree with that?
Does that put him top 10 money at $13
million? That would put him, let's see, top 15. With him being paid outside of top 15 annual at his position, which right now would be less than $13 million.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, but I think he would probably want top 10 money. And so I just don't see him wanting to do the deal right now, as we've outlined before, when his value is at its lowest point. I think if he has a bounce back season, he'll have the leverage of being a free agent and having that leverage on his side, ability to test the market if he would like to. So I just, unless they're going to pay him top 10 money, which I don't think they would right now, then I don't think he's going to want to do a deal.
Okay, I would agree with that. I think the only way he gets a deal done if it is around that $13 million range. But I mean, you would think the guy seems to be doing good outside of football with endorsements or whatnot, right? I don't think he's hurting, right?
He's not hurting for money.
Pizza Hut and Twitch and Fortnite and whatever. I think he's got plenty of endorsement money coming in that he can kind of bet on himself.
He's probably making more money from endorsements than he is on his rookie contract.
Yeah. But look, he's only set to earn 1 point whatever million, right? I mean, I hope he's the way he's marketing himself. I hope it's paid off for him.
Good point.
To earn more than. All right, now let's say he comes close once again. Let's be hypothetical and say, okay, here it is. He comes close to having a repeat of that season, of a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, 2018.
Right.
Are you asking what his market value would be then in that scenario?
Right.
I think it's definitely top 10 money at that point. I forget what numbers I'm not looking at over the cap right now. It's probably $15-16 million per year. And so I think that's when you start doing what you've talked about, which is probably tagging him in to lock him down, and then in the hopes of doing a long-term deal.
Right. So I mean, there's no way. I mean, if he let me put the question to you this way: if he returns let's say he doesn't get a deal done, by the start of this regular season, if he's back in a Steelers uniform in 2021, it's a result of the tag and the tag only.
I'm not going to say that 100%. I think it's most likely scenario, and I think even with a tag, then you could try to do the long-term deal. But short answer is, if he has a good year, they're probably going to have to tag him, as you've talked about, to do a long-term deal, just in the way they did that with Dupree this year.
I agree. I think the only way, and I'll give it, what percent chance would you give it that they get a deal done with him before the start of this regular season?
1%.
I'll go the full dollar.
Your Price is Right, me, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm never playing Price is Right with you.
I'm going to go 1.1%.
Oh my God! Get off Contestants Row, Dave.
Yeah.
Games.
But look, I mean, I would bet against it, obviously, but I don't want to completely rule it out, But if he is back in 2021, I think it is a result of a tag, And I think he needs to have right at least a very comparative season to 2018, right?
Yeah, something like that. He just has to be healthy, obviously play well. I think he's capable of that. I think obviously getting Ben back is huge. I think everything's aligning for him to have that bounce back year, and that obviously drives up his value, but then puts a tag very much in play.
All right, here's a new tweet from James Harrison this morning. Wow, y'all really comparing what I said to Bountygate? Mike T has never paid me for hurting someone or trying to hurt someone or put a bounty on anybody. If you knew the full story of what happened back then, you'd... Hold on, I got to go to...
Well, I hope he shares the full story. He's the one able to share.
If you knew the full story of what happened back then, you'd know that BS fine for a legal play wasn't even penalized during the game. The league was getting pressure because the first concussion lawsuits were starting, and they had to look like they cared about player safety all of a sudden. Before that, they had been selling a photo of that same play. Remember who highlighted that on Steelers Depot?
Oh, was that you?
Yeah, who highlighted them selling that before that they had the same place selling that photo for $55 on the NFL website with other videos on the NFL's greatest hits, and that league profited from it back then when the league had to start pretending like they cared about player safety. They took those things down off their website and they started fining guys ridiculous amount, blah, 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 used the profit off. Everybody knew it, even these same media people and all the fans that were sending money to me and the team to cover the fine. Again, at no time did Mike T ever suggest anybody hurt anybody or that they'd be rewarded for anything like that. Get the beep GTFOH with that BS. Receipts. Hashtag receipts. All right, so, but what he's saying, don't compare it to Bounty Gate. Mike Tomlin has never paid me for hurting someone. Where does this envelope coming in at? I don't.
Well, he's saying what I said earlier, a half hour ago, is that he was paid to cover the fine. It was not premeditated. It wasn't go hit Massaquoi and we'll pay you money. It was, we think this is BS, that you got fined for this hit that wasn't penalized for. We know what the league is doing. They're changing the rules, so we're going to cover the fine because they're screwing you around. That's what he's saying. I'm not saying that. He's saying that.
Okay, so have you read this?
No.
Let me send this to you. I want you to read it. All right, and then
Okay.
I want you to tell me how this what's different of this. I just sent it to you there, so I want you to read that and tell me how that kind of differs from what he said on the podcast the other day.
Yeah, you give me Jeopardy. We get all the game shows today. I don't think it differs. I think he's saying, and I think he just was being vague with it before, is that his allegation, his statement, is that Tomlin paid him after the fact for the Massaquoi hit, which is what he said in the podcast before. It's what he's saying here, not as a bounty, not as a go hit him and we'll reward you, but just as a, you're not getting paid a lot, James. We think the NFL's fine is BS. We think what they're doing to you is wrong, and so we're going to cover the fine for you. That's what he's saying.
All right, so if the Steelers reimbursed him for that, then there's some sort of violation in there, right?
Yes, it still would be wrong for them to do, but it is a big difference between that and Bounty Gate, which is what I said earlier. Remember, this Harrison is saying that he was paid after getting fined. If he was paid like right after the game, before there was any notion of a fine coming, then that would suggest some sort of bounty. But if he's saying I got paid after I got fined by the league and realized how much it was, $75,000 for a hit, I think it was unprecedented in the NFL at the time, that's what he's saying the Steelers were doing. I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, although obviously in the league's views that would be wrong to do. But I can guarantee you it's nothing bounty related. I said that a little bit ago in the show. It would be just to cover his fine.
Right. So you're taking this then as Harrison still saying that he received money, but it was money to cover his BS fine.
Yes. That I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that is Harrison's statement. That's the way he's trying to frame it.
Right. And if that's the case, then that's a no-no on the Steelers' part. If
right.
if that indeed happened.
Yeah, it would be. But I think that's plausible. I'm not saying the Steelers definitely did not do that. I think that's a plausible thing, and I'm sure that's not the first time that's happened somewhere in the NFL.
And I'm sure still, even after this, Harrison's going to be on the talk shows, and we're going to be talking more about this. But I just want to throw that out there, being as how Harrison just posted that this morning here.
Yeah, I'm glad you circled back to that. I want to switch here briefly to some undrafted free agent news. Speaking of Harrison, undrafted free agents, we know the final two signing bonuses for the last two Steelers UDFAs. Calvin Taylor, defensive end from Kentucky, got $10,000, and Leo Lewis, the linebacker from Mississippi State, got $7,000. So that rounds out the top signing bonuses for the UDFAs.
That means our top two were Taylor and
Josiah Coatney, $15,000.
Right, Coatney. Now, did you see what the Patriots paid out?
Yeah, well, they do I didn't see everything. I think you had a tweet that had a list of it, or someone did, of the base salary guarantees, right? The signing bonuses are the same, but they do the base salary guarantees, which is what most of the NFL does.
Right, and let me see if I can pull that up real quick.
So I think their top guy got $150,000 guaranteed total, with a $20,000 signing bonus, and then $130,000, whatever the number is, guaranteed of that base salary. That's how teams circumvent the very small $123,000 signing bonus pool for undrafted players.
Right. Steelers gave out $80,000 in total signing bonuses to their 10 undrafted free agents this year, and to the best of my knowledge, that was the only portion guaranteed was the signing. That's usual for them. The Patriots gave out $105,000
in signing
bonuses, but they fully guaranteed almost $846,000 to their 15 undrafted free agents.
Right, and that's the disadvantage the Steelers are playing with when they're giving out 1/10 of what the Patriots or other teams are giving in guaranteed money.
Right. So now look, are the Patriots going to have to eat a lot of that in dead money? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, yeah, that's the balance.
But what if they get two players out of that? You know?
Yeah, and that's why the Steelers' undrafted classes over the last half dozen years have been pretty poor compared to all that rich history of great UDFAs in years prior.
Okay, where should we go? Oh, one thing I wanted to hit on real quick here, and this is something that I think both of us need to dig deeper into and revisit the discussion at some point. But just your initial thoughts, because I think you've watched enough of McFarland tape now. I don't think you've watched as much as I have, but
I think I have.
I think you have watched a lot more now. The big conversation was, J.K. Dobbins. All right, a lot of fans wanted J.K. Dobbins there with the Steelers' second round pick. That obviously didn't happen, and they got a very statue. Yeah, here's where I'm going with this. How much different is McFarland than J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean,
where are the similarities and where are the differences? Why is one that much? Why was one second round? Why was one fourth round?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities. I think they obviously profile as 5'8", 200 plus, great speed, win the open field, do their best work in the second and third levels. I think Dobbins was more accomplished as a receiver, was split out, moved around more, obviously was way more productive, had whatever 2,000 yards this past season. So I think it just came down to production against really quality competition. McFarland, in part obviously because of the ankle sprain this past year, didn't have that level of production, is what separated them and caused McFarland to fall to the fourth round.
But what about their game?
Not a lot. They're pretty similar in terms of their game, I think. Again, I think that Dobbins was more accomplished as a receiver. I don't have the exact numbers on that, but watching his tape, I thought he looked better out there and was moved around the offense more than McFarland was.
What about the ability to break tackles?
I think they're pretty similar, right? Dobbins, my issue with it was power. McFarland, I think, is in a similar area where he can push the power forward, can break some tackles, maybe better than some people expect, but obviously these are not power backs.
23 receptions last year for Dobbins for 247 yards.
And McFarland had 24 2 years in Maryland.
26 for Dobbins in 2018.
Yeah. And in the production, he had, 2,084 yards last year, whatever the number, rushing?
With his rushing splits here, 301 carries in 2019 for 2,000 yards, and that's just carries. So he took 2,000 on 300 attempts and 20.
Productivity matters. It matters a lot to Pittsburgh. Now, again, McFarland, you could argue the ankle injury and everything that slowed him up last year, but Pittsburgh has always drafted backs that were ultra productive. Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, Benny Snell, Jalen Samuels. They think there's a direct correlation between if you produce in college, you can produce at the NFL, or more so if you didn't produce in college, then you're unlikely to produce all of a sudden in the NFL. So when Dobbins rushes for 2,000 yards at Ohio State playing good competition, that's what gets you drafted in the second round.
All right. So McFarland, J.K. Dobbins, light?
Yeah, I think it's McFarland. Yeah, I think they're similar guys with McFarland offering some better value. So in terms of overall style, yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities.
I think there is a lot of similarities, and that's where I was going. I think there are a lot of similarities in this. Now, I would like to I've obviously watched more McFarland tape now than I have Dobbins tape, and I remember going back and doing, the explosive. I think they're both kind of, can deliver the home run. Heck. I remember doing a whole post on I think Dobbins' explosive runs and all like that. I think they both have a comparative skill set as far as breaking tackles go. I don't think one's that much better than the other.
I agree.
I still got to research it, go deeper into the pass protection, aspect of it. I don't remember Dobbins blowing my mind with pass protection.
Mm-hmm. I think he had some issues in the tape that I watched, remember correctly.
He obviously did catch a few more passes, but I think they're both comparative speaking with the ball in their hands out in space there. So I just, as the off season goes on, maybe that's a discussion we can get back into.
Yeah, I did a video, by the way, on McFarland the other day on his vision. I do like his vision to be a complete runner. I talked about inside zone and the bang, bounce, bring reads. I have a video breakdown on that that kind of shows his vision that he's more than just a speed back.
I think we still get framed with this as hating the McFarland pick. I think it's just more. I don't think people paid attention as much to us just being upset positionally.
Yeah, that was my first reaction to it, but I really think since our first discussion after they made the pick, we've just focused on the player himself. And there's obviously talent there, and as you said, he's similar to Dobbins. He just fell because he didn't have the numbers and had that ankle sprain. So if he gets back in good health, which he is, you could have some really good value there.
Right. Who's going to have had a better career 5 years from now, do you think?
I don't know. Dobbins is in a great system, just in that Ravens system, where they're going to run the ball well, that's guaranteed. So I'll say Dobbins, but I think McFarland will be a good player.
History has told us that not all 5 of these top backs are going to, we're not going to look at all these 5 backs the same 5 years from now, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be interesting to see which ones come out of that. Because overall on paper, it looked like a good top of the class there, right?
Yeah, it was a strong running back class. And next year's class looks pretty good, too, with the Clemson kid, the Oklahoma State kid, and whoever else pops up. All right, Dave, let's stick with the rookies here, and then I'll talk about Eric Ebron briefly, but you wanted to finish up your discussion on the contextualization of Chase Claypool, and you're done with that? Have you contextualized each game of 2019?
Yeah, boy, did I learn.
Wow. You learned a lot. Congratulations. That's some serious work.
I think I have seen all but 1 or 2 targets I don't think I could find. I think that maybe there was one in the Duke game. I don't remember specifically, but I have seen pretty much every target that he had from the 2019 season. And someone asked me, I think it was after the Boston College game, has my opinion of him being a more of a 3rd round guy changed throughout this? And really, overall, I don't think it has. But look, here's the thing that really sticks out to me after going through all these games. And look, I knew a lot of this going into this. He is a contested catch freak. Okay. Mm-hmm. He is the back shoulder down the sideline king of that. He can really go get those balls down the sideline that for whatever reason might be underthrown, might be purpose back shoulder, whatever. He can go up and get those balls, and he can come down with them that way. He's good running those underneath crosses, whether it be mesh or just flat out just underneath, kind of crosser. He is good using that body on those quick slants, on those 3 and 7 yard slants to the middle of the field. He does a good job at securing those type plays. He is obviously good in the red zone, either off the ball on a quick slant or some sort of fade in that aspect. We do see some instances of him throughout as the season progressed of him stacking corners on the outside and being able to get on top. Now, are there any flat out him running away from guys? Well, if you count the linebacker in the Stanford game,
I don't think I do.
Not really. There's no. You see the speed, but you just don't see him. Randy Mossum, is that what's a good analogy? Guy just flat out burn him. In the bowl game against Iowa State, he got on top of that corner on the outside, but that corner also fell. Stumbled. And it's not Claypool's fault that happened, but there was no ability for that kid to get back in phase there. I think it remains the biggest question still with him that I think he needs to answer at the NFL level is, can he get on top of and stack these cornerbacks on the outside? That to me is the biggest question mark that remains. If he does that a couple times, then he'll have checked that box. But I don't think you can come out of his 2019 tape, or any of his tape for that matter, saying this is a guy that we know. Now look, the quarterback play was bad. He didn't have a strong arm quarterback. He had a quarterback that should have put that ball out there a few times, a lot more than what he did. And maybe we'd have a better sense of Claypool being able to separate down the field in these situations. But I think the only question I think we have about Claypool right now is, can he do that at the NFL level? Can he get that separation on the outside?
Yeah, I think that's a concern that you've presented since the beginning, and it seems like that still remains after the fact. That'll be big for him because you don't, as good of a contested catcher as he is, that's still not a high rate of success. Trying to do contested catches all the time and having to outmuscle every single play in the NFL, it's going to just be a struggle. So you want to win cleanly more often than not.
I mean, he is impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong. He is impressive, throughout his tape. Those contested catches, those getting yards after the heck in that. And look, he was the MVP of the bowl game against Iowa State, and he deserved every last bit of it too. He had a third down, third and 10 or third and 12 or whatever tunnel screen that it just seemed like it was a give up play, and he gained 20 yards on that, and just muscling through. He is a hard guy to bring down in space. And I think for, some people say, well, separation in short areas ain't there. I think he quieted a little bit of that too, especially in some of those red zone touchdowns of his, being able to turn defensive backs around and get a lot of space there in red zone there. This is not a knock on him, saying that we still have to see if him be able to stack at the NFL level. And I don't consider that a knock on him. I just think that's just one of the primary questions that I still have coming out of his tape. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying there's still some questions about whether or not he can at the NFL level get on. We'll see. He, if Ben's arm is the way we think it's going to be, Ben should have the opportunity to see if he can overthrow him.
What about him on special teams? After going through all special teams work, I like how you broke down every aspect of his game. Any takeaways there overall?
Oh, he's fine. He's going to be fine as a gunner, I think. I mean, he is incredibly tough to jam. He shows up a lot being the first guy down the field for whatever that's worth.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's I think he had a couple of fumble recoveries there, maybe one or two tackles overall. He's going to be fine in that area. And look, I mean, you obviously hope he's not playing special teams for 4 years, right? There, but I think his rookie season, he should be relied upon to be a gunner right out. Gunner right out of the chute there on the punt coverage team. As far as his blocking goes, it's there. He has the want to do it. He has the ability to do it. He has the technique to do it. Sometimes you just don't see him finish the way or stay on blocks the way you think he probably should. I think it blew one touchdown run opportunity. Had he stayed on the block, I think it was against USC. If he stays on that second level block, full second earlier, that running back's gone. I think past that safety. So it's not it's not an issue of can he this or technique or whatever. He just needs to stay on his blocks longer on the outside. And I think the Steelers will cure him of that. So no issue with that part of his game. No issue with the special teams part of his game. No issue with his overall receiving part of the game. He ran those speed out. The only other thing I would say when it comes to his route running and all is they need to teach him to do a better job of breaking back to the quarterback on these curls and these comebacks. Because I think if he lazily cuts these things off at the top of his route, somebody's going to pick one off underneath him.
So week 1 starting gunners, Justin Lane and Chase Claypool. Sound
Heck,
about right?
Yeah, sign me up.
All right, sounds good.
Do you think I missed anything? Do you think at any point I've been unfair with him on this?
Well, hey, I don't think you missed anything. I just looked up Notre Dame's website, and you are listed as offensive quality control for the Fighting Irish. So congratulations.
Not that, but not that. Probably not that far along. But and look, it was fun doing it. People ask me how long does it take. So it takes about an hour to power through a game properly, laying on that arrow button, and then
Right.
probably another hour to write it up and trim everything up on there. But I really think I did learn a lot more about him. He really is a really good contested catch player. He's a maximum effort guy, game in, game out. For the most part, he played through that ankle hurt him at certain points of it during the season there, and he played there. And look, he would have had better had Notre Dame not blown out. He took a lot of fourth quarters off,
Right.
because of them being way ahead, for whatever reason. So his stats could have been even better if they were in a lot more competitive games.
Shout out to the arrow button. What a valuable tool that was. Whoever came up with that. God bless you.
Shout out to the VLC player too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, VLC is a very good player. That's what I use and I highly recommend. So really, I think that you didn't miss anything on Claypool. I think you were as thorough as humanly possible. I think that's just good insight to either check some boxes you thought were checked or to have some questions that still need to be answered. As you said, it's not that he can't do it. You just have to see it.
Right. I just see it a couple of times at the NFL level, and there you go. But I mean, the Steelers talk about the contested catch ability. They talk about the red zone ability. They in so many words talk about him being able to get deep too, right? Haven't had a receiver like Bryant, or I forget how they kind of worded it and all.
Nick Washington, Mike Wallace, Davis Bryant.
Get a couple of wins over the top. Have Ben hit you in stride with you 1.5 yards, 2 yards on a stacked cornerback, and end of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to get someone with 4.4 speed, because the rest of the receiving group runs in the 4.5s. Speaking of some more big plays downfield, Eric Ebron tweeted yesterday that he is feeling healthy. He's running, he's cutting, and all the ankle surgeries that he went in December, whenever it was last year, seems to be rehabbing really well.
And that's good news, man. Look, I mean, I think in so many words, what Kevin Colbert, let me see if I can pull this up, what he had to say about Ebron when asked kind of if, what they thought about maybe possibly having more two tight end sets with him as a result of bringing him in, joining, along with, where's the damn article on that? Did you sticky that?
Which article?
The Ebron. The Ebron.
Oh, yeah, it should be stickied up there. I'll pull it up here. It's sticky at the top of the page.
I'm not seeing where is it sticky
no?
there.
Like the third one sticky. New Steelers tight end Eric Ebron. Running, cutting without pain.
Did I miss it? Oh, there it is. Okay, right there in front of me. Okay, here's what he said about, we're going to see him kind of in two tight end sets. This is kind of his full answer. Well, you know what? We're anxious to, and this was on 105.90X with Mark Madden, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? We're anxious to see Eric, and again, we haven't physically seen him since we signed him back in March. Colbert said anxious to see what he can do. I'm sure Ben's anxious to get with him and work with him to see what he can do. But I think that'll be another red zone type contributor, much like Claypool might be, because they have size, they have athleticism. And again, you're going to need those contested catch guys in that confined area here. Got two of those guys now, at least in Claypool and Eric Ebron. He goes on to say, so we do have comfort with Eric Ebron because he does have some unique receiving skills. And again, this game's more about throwing than it is running. Do you have to run or no? You have to run, and you want those tight ends to block. But when they're exceptional receivers like we think Ebron is, I think it can give us another dimension that we really didn't have in the past. Doesn't seem like that's a flaming endorsement of run blocking right there, right?
It's not, but he'd be lying to you if he gave you a full endorsement of Ebron's run blocking, because it's not his game. It's not the reason why they signed him, not the reason why they paid him. So yeah, somebody that can be a flex tight end, a move tight end, can win vertical and win the red zone. This is a number 32 ranked red zone offense last year. I know that's for a variety of reasons, starting with the quarterback situation, but they have to get better in the red zone. They got to be able to finish drives, and Ebron and Claypool will help them do that.
This kind of goes back to us talking about, I'm not going to be able to stomach, I don't think, seeing some 12 and 22 with McDonald and Ebron out there together.
I think it'd be smart with it. I think you can have that, but do you flex somebody out? Do you walk somebody out wide? Do you run away? I mean, how do you do backside cutoff blocks, and just how do you mitigate and minimize those weaknesses? So I think you can do it. You just got to be smart about it and understand where guys are going to win and where they are going to struggle.
I just, if you're going to slam it up in the middle of it with Connor, though, I don't know if I want to see that.
Well, I think they done some things last year with the Colts. I was looking, and I was going to try to do a video on it, but I just didn't get enough there. But they did some stuff where Ebron wouldn't take the end; he would climb to the second level or work up on a safety or a corner. So I think you're trusting Fietner to be smart, and the blocking seems to be sound. There's some concerns there, valid concerns, but I think there's smart ways you can go about it.
Okay.
But again, I also think that this is mainly just so Vance and Ebron can switch out, and so they're each playing 500 snaps as opposed to both playing 700 or one guy playing 800, one guy playing 300.
Which guy are you drafting in fantasy, if either? And will
It's
either one or either one of those going to be not that anybody cares? I'm sure we have those the haves and have-nots when it comes to fantasy or players or whatnot, but. Are either one going to be tight end one material?
Yeah, they're
fantasy?
They're just touchdown dependent. They're going to ebb and flow. There'll be weeks where McDonald plays well, and he's the guy. There's been weeks where Ebron's going to be the guy. I would lean Ebron just because I have more confidence in him being a focal point in the red zone, and a touchdown weapon. But neither are going to be consistent, I think, statistically, just because the ebb and flow snap counts.
Right. What's the ceiling of receptions for a guy like Ebron? 45? That's high, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that
if
feels
he's playing
high.
500, he's playing 500 snaps. Yeah, I would say 40 as the ceiling.
Okay,
my guess of it.
I think people are going to overrate him a little bit. Do you?
In fantasy or just overall?
Overall.
I think he's rated.
I think people are going to overrate his addition.
Yeah, I think it's properly rated if you view him just as that red zone guy. Now, if somebody goes down and gets hurt, I don't think they're all going to be healthy all year. Then that may open the door for a lot more snaps, a lot more opportunity. But yeah, I think you just have to understand that he's not going to be, Vance McDonald of 2018.
Is Eric Ebron going to be on this roster exactly 1 year from today?
History's not been kind to tight ends. The Rolodex of those names, unfortunately, have come in and come out. I just have it to be determined. I don't know, but I'm not super optimistic.
Best guess.
I mean, I'm going to get yelled at. I'll say no, just because the history has been most of these guys come and go pretty quickly.
That's where I'm going with this as well, too. I think if I would bet no, he won't right now. I know it's going to. We might get some feedback from that, and people are saving. Is saving receipts the new term now? Is that the new buzz? I'm saving receipts.
It's a pretty common phrase. Though with Harrison talking about receipts, I'd like to see actual receipts. You got paid $75,000. You're saying show the actual receipt.
There you go. Bump, bump.
Yeah, be here all week.
Try to veal. Okay. What else do we have?
I think that was about
pretty good show about talk about nothing, right?
Yeah, and it's a Seinfeld episode of the podcast today. And rest in peace, Jerry Stiller. That one, I was really crushed by that,
Lord,
that news.
I think
I'm not a big Seinfeld guy, but I love King of Queens.
I love Seinfeld. I love it. I can watch any Seinfeld episode anytime. And that's a show I really didn't pay much attention to when it was in really so much in its prime as much as I did more when it got into syndication, I think.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
any reason for that? Because you grew up obviously in the Seinfeld era.
Yeah, look, I was doing other things. I was not setting my watch.
You were a Kramer during that time.
I was not setting my watch to primetime TV, making sure I was home in front of the TV or setting the old VCR, or beta to record those kind of things there. No, I became much more of a Seinfeld fan kind of after it went off the air. So same way with like MASH. I think MASH is just brilliant.
Mm-hmm. It's a great show.
I don't know how much you get into MASH. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I tell you,
the character of that I really like, Alan Alda. I love Alan Alda.
Yeah, just fantastic. The older you get, and the more you learn about Korean War and at the time I could when I was a kid I give two what's about that show, but obviously the older that I've gotten, definitely have an appreciation for that. Seinfeld, I think, just brilliantly written all the way around. You probably never watched it, Titus.
No.
The sitcom Titus. Oh man,
With Christopher Titus?
Yeah,
Really?
Lord, what a great! You can find almost all those episodes, I think, on the YouTube machine as well too.
Was that a long-running show?
I think it was 2 or 3 seasons,
Yeah,
maybe. It wasn't very long. Brilliant, because I can relate to a lot of it too. Maybe that's why.
I like his comedy. I like Christopher Titus' stand-up.
Yeah, it is fantastic. Stacy Keach. I mean, I just think that was shows that got canceled way too. Maybe just a lot of people couldn't relate to it like I could with the father, and all like that. But yeah.
And any go-to TV today? I know you're not watching a ton of non-sports related TV.
No, look, I like. This might sound crazy. I was into that gold digging show, the Alaska. What's that called? Gold. I'm
not sure. On like History Channel.
Yeah. We're out there in the Yukon digging for gold and all like that. I got into that for a couple seasons, but that kind of jumped the shark on me just recently. I don't follow that. I love the first 48. The crime. The crime show reality on I think it's A&E, I think is that one. What else am I into? Little People, Big World. I've always had
you and my mom should hang out. She loves that show.
The Roll-Offs. I don't know what it is about it because there's not the younger kid Zach is about the only one I have patience with in that whole show. I think the rest of them are just so off the hook, kind of out there, but that's something that I seem to never miss an episode on. But really, that
I would have never guessed that. I would have never guessed that.
Little People, Big World, and the first 48, and Gold Rush was the other one. But I've kind of gotten away from that. I think that's kind of jumped the shark.
In what way did it jump the shark?
Once a reality show is a reality show for so long, a lot of it seems kind of, I don't know, scripted. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Do you know where the phrase "jump the shark" came from?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I thought maybe I'd surprise you, but I can't get it past Oracle Dave of Happy Days and them literally jumping the shark, and that's when the show kind of just went off the rails.
Right, and isn't kind of that? Didn't that kind of come from the guy on Howard Stern? The guy wrote the book. Did he kind of come up with that phrase?
Yeah, I don't know the origin of the phrase in terms of who first said it, but I just know that's the reason behind the phrase.
Who's that guy that does the the wrap up show? John, hit him with the hind.
I'm not going to give any assistance here.
But anyway, I think he's the one that he wrote a book about television, culture and all that. I think he was the one that kind of originally coined that. But that obviously comes from the Happy Days and the Fonz, the Jump the Shark episode. So that's when people view that Happy Days kind of went too far.
Yeah, went crazy. Point. Right. All right, Dave. Let's circle back to some read emails and close out the show.
Boy, we've kind of hit it all today, haven't we?
I know. You get the bingo card checked off.
You haven't watched the Warriors yet, have you? God, Alex, you gotta. I mean, get off the damn. Where do I
even find it? Where do I find the Warriors?
I will pay for you to watch
the box
that
set?
on like Amazon or whatever. Can't you even go to like YouTube Play or whatnot and buy that for like $5 or whatnot? I will pay for you to I will pay for you to watch that movie and then give us a book. You're
giving me homework.
A book report. No, just a quick synopsis of your thoughts on the movie and all. I mean, anyway. Let's see. That and Cool Hand Luke, man. You can watch that one online. I'll pay for that one as well, too. Wide receiver corps from Anthony Morgan writes in, best Steeler news, hand down. Thanks for all you do. Seems to me like the Steelers wide receiver corps is top 5. Do you have a ranking on top wide receiver corps around the league? Also, could you speak to what seems like an extremely great blocking group of wide receivers the Steelers have? Would surely help with some explosive runs. Not a bad blocking group overall. I mean, I think, obviously whatever you can get out of Deontay, I think is gravy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's with JuJu and Washington, in addition to Claypool and even someone like maybe Deion Kane. The tight ends, unfortunately, they'll kind of lose a little luster with the blocking there. But yeah, it's a good blocking. In terms of top 5 ranking, I don't have a ranking, so I don't know for sure where I place them. Top 5 is probably too rich for me, though, right now.
That Buccaneers group's got to be up there.
Yeah, that for sure.
Godwin and Mike Evans
right.
and
New Orleans is lacking kind of a 3, but they got Thomas and Sanders are, I think, really good 2.
Right. Who else around the league? I haven't really sat back and taken a good look at it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would have to as well. I'm trying to think of some teams that might come to mind. It's
a good one. It's just a look. I think James Washington's got to take that next step. JuJu's got to get back to being JuJu of 2018. I think Alex and I are both convinced that he could be that guy, especially with Ben back. And that's another thing Colbert hit on the other day. Look, we expect James Conner to be James Conner and JuJu to be JuJu to be JuJu. I almost said JuJu be James Conner. There's your featured runner. But JuJu to be JuJu in 2018. The return of Ben's going to have a huge impact on this offense. You know? And if those guys can stay healthy. Look, it's not a bad wide receiver core, top to bottom right now. But I think you got to see. I was a big fan of Washington coming out, but I still think he's got one. I think he's got a lot to prove still in this season. Would you agree?
What do you think that next? Because you say he needs to take the next step. What do you think that next step is? How do you?
I think he's got to deliver big plays in big moments on a more consistent basis.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, there were some, but yeah, just probably a little bit more, maybe a little bit more intermediate short game as opposed to just a long game with him too.
Yeah, and look, I'd like to see him still run away from somebody up top.
He's just not going to be that guy, though. He just doesn't have that Wallace-type speed.
Yeah, but there's a couple of corners around the league he should be able to get on top of and stack,
Yeah,
so.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I was really encouraged by that sophomore year, again, under very difficult circumstances.
I was, too. I'm not saying there was anything wrong with what he did. I mean, that catch against Cleveland, some of those basket throw, the Bengals game, a couple of those bucket throws down the side. I think Duck made to him. Those weren't easy catches,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he showed us a lot of what he showed us at Oklahoma State. I want to see one progression more from there, and I think that's making more big plays and more key moments more consistently.
Yeah, just to the point overall, there's just a little bit of prove it from this group, I think, to get in that top 5 type discussion.
Right. I mean, look, Deontay, you would hope that he's going to be able to go, to take that next step. I mean, definitely top to bottom for all, for him being a rookie. There's nothing wrong with his rookie season.
No, I'm really, really excited for him in year 2. It was a really good rookie year.
All right, our buddy Ashley.
You won't get to see my tweets about it. I won't get to see tweets about it, though.
Oh, he got you blocked, right?
Yeah, that was from the old punt return discussion.
Oh, okay. Dang us being objective. Ashley Bright writes in, Dave and Alex, fascinated as I watch Steelers Depot break down tape of McFarland. No one provides better analysis in the media. Thank you for that. Running back comparison question. Willie Parker, according to Pro Football Reference, was 5'10", 212 pounds, finishing career rushing 5.378 yards with 4.3 yards a carry. Finishing rushing with 5,370 yards with a 4.3 yards per carry average, receiving 84 catches, 697 yards, total touchdowns 29, two-time Pro Bowler, two-time Super Bowl champ, six-year career. Finished as Steelers' third all-time leading rusher, 42 yards ahead of Le'Veon Bell, who is in 4th place. Amos Zaraway, 5'8", 212. 7-year career, over 2,100 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, and over 1,100 receiving yards and 11 total TDs. Do you think Anthony McFarland, 5'8", 2008, can carve himself an NFL career between those two? More Willie upside than Amos, or the other way? Good question, Ashley, and I'm trying to rack my brain for Amos Zaraway highlights.
Yeah, he had some great plays at West Virginia. He was a monster in college. I think that's a good way to frame it. I like the zero-way comparison. I haven't heard that before. I don't think he's kind of got the same build, I guess. You could argue that, sure. Yeah, I think there's a chance for him to be, in that in-between. I think that he obviously has a lot of talent, and if the opportunity presents itself, I just do wonder, and not to go back into discussion, will he ever really get that opportunity to be the, quote, Tomlin feature-type runner, or is it going to be where he's going to get, 5 touches a game this year, Connor walks, they draft a second-round guy next year, he's the guy. McFarland is always, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Is that going to be his career arc in Pittsburgh?
In other words, is he always just going to be the lightning to a thunder?
Right, and the Thunder is still going to be the dude, and the lightning just pops in every now and then. I don't know, but that's a thought.
In order for him to become Willie Parker-ish, he's going to have to get an opportunity and have a couple big games in there with him touching the ball 20-something times at least, I think.
Because Parker was the guy. Like, I know they took him off in, some third down with, Rolde Moore later on, but he was the guy for a 3-4 year stretch.
All right, without looking, how many games did Willie Parker have during his career where he touched the football more than 25 times?
I was thinking about what were the most carries in a year he had. I don't know the answer to that. But to your question, I have no frame of reference. I'll say
how many games? 9. How many games did he have just 25 carries or more? Would you think?
I'm trying to think. I'm not even looking at his stats because I don't want to cheat at all. 5, 6. I don't know. Am I even lowballing that?
He actually had 14 regular season games where he had 25 or more carries.
I guess I'm stuck in the not 2005 where it was such a running league for the team and for the league.
Believe it or not, he only had one game that he caught more than 4 passes in. And, let me frame it to you this way. He only had 8 career games where he had 3 or more receptions. Would you believe that?
Well, I knew he wasn't much of a receiver. They just handed the ball off to him. I mean, that was the approach back then with the big fullback, big Dan Kreider, and all that.
So he had, going back to this again, let's set the market. Let's say 20 or more carries in a game during his regular season career. He had 33 games where he had 20 or more carries. Will we ever see McFarland come close to having that many carries in a game? I would answer no. It would be my initial.
Are you asking, will he have 33 games of 20-plus carries?
Right.
I don't have any evidence. I can't get my head around that right now. No, I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, that to me is where he's going to have some games early in his career where he's given that many carries and he makes something of it. I'm not saying he can't be that guy. I'm just saying there's really no evidence, really, right?
Mm-hmm. What about Zerouay? What were his career highs? Because maybe that's the more likely path. Because he was generally not the guy the way the Parker was for a stretch.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've got kind of a blank.
434 career carries in Pittsburgh, 193 in 2002. Career high rushes.
Only 4 times during his career did he have 20 or more attempts in a game.
The one was 37, that tie against Atlanta, the whole Plexico burst at the 1-yard line.
Oh, game. Good memory.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just looking at the box score. Yeah, I think a Zerouay career, maybe a better average, because Zerouay's average was, 3.9. McFarland can do better than that, a little burstier.
So maybe he is somewhere in between Zerouay.
A long way to agree with your question.
Between Zerouay and Parker. My hope for McFarland is he can be that, can become at least maybe an 8 to 10 touch a game guy that delivers you at least one explosive play a game.
Yeah, I think that's a good way. If he does that, I'm happy with it.
Right. So, good question, Ashley. Suleiman Gilani writes in, starting offensive line. Hey, David Oss, love the show, listen to it, and study at the same time. My question is in regards to the offensive line. What would be a better combination to start in terms of allowing the fewest sacks in opening running lanes? Villanueva, Filer, Pouncey, DeCastro, and Chooks, or Villanueva, Wisniewski, Pouncey, DeCastro, and Filer?
I'm still of the mindset if I was going to kick the left guard, and I support that, not only from a productivity standpoint, although, again, I think obviously you want to see what happens with the right tackle battle. But Wisniewski has not been a 16-game starter, full-time since like 2015. I mean, he was a reserve. He was on the street for parts of the time last year. I think it was a good pickup, but I didn't envision him as a starter day one to be your 1,100 snap kind of guy. Plus, and this is a little separate from the question, but from a practical standpoint, if you have Wisniewski at left guard and Pouncey goes down, then you're playing musical chairs potentially in game, and that's a mess I don't want to create.
Yeah, but he just wants his is a flat out, which would be a better combination in terms of allowing the fewest sacks and opening running lanes.
I still believe it's Fowler to left guard. Again, I want to see the right tackle battle. I'll have a better answer for you then, but I still believe it's Fowler to left guard and one of those guys at right tackle.
Wisniewski obviously has a lot more playing time at guard, but
he does. But is he the better player than Fowler at guard? I don't think he would be.
Yeah, jury's kind of out on that one.
I just think that Fowler's a really good player.
All right. Rob Jones writes in, with the new CBA and the creation of new 4-year player benefits up to additional $1.25 million in salary excluded from the cap for up to 2 players. What could the Steelers afford for Mike Daniels or Snacks Harrison or maybe even Mark Barron? Does anyone else apply on the current roster? Am I interpreting it correctly that it gives you an extra $1.25 million for veteran players? Also, 2020 supplemental draft or 2021 draft, all in on Pat. How do you say the Penn State tight end kid's last name? Freiermuth.
I'm not even looking at it. I don't
even
know.
Watched Harley any time. I've seen a couple highlights on him.
Freiermuth looks good.
Dave, is this your next bromance? I haven't looked at Rob. I haven't looked at that kid much of any, to be honest with you. I mean, I obviously concentrate on kids in this year's draft and all. So he's saying if this kid comes out for the supplemental draft or 2021 draft, should the Steelers be all in on that? I haven't even looked at him, so I can't give you a good answer, Rob.
Yeah, I don't know either. It'll be interesting that will there be more guys in the supplemental draft this year, given the uncertainty of college football? If you're at a Pac-12 school in California and they're saying we might close down for the fall, do you just jump to the NFL now? I don't know.
That's a good question.
You could have a lot more talent.
Look,
and the Steelers have never made a supplemental pick, I believe.
Right. So, I'm trying to go back over the specifics of the CBA and.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for the second part about exceptions, and I mean, it just the cap would be tight because these guys are probably 1-year deals, and there's some sort of exception to some amount of that money.
Creation of a new 4-year player benefit up to additional $1.25 million and salary cap excluded from cap for up to 2 players. I don't think we've seen that come into work yet with the Steelers, right?
You would know better than I do, but I don't believe so.
Right. Is it? I guess what he's asking is what could it translate to with a guy? Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think you can rule it out. I mean, could they give a guy like Mike Daniels, $3.5 million if 1.25 of that's excluded? Yeah, I think that's in the realm of possibility. Look, this team right now, from a caps perspective, after them signing their undrafted free agents, is $5.74 million under the cap. You still got a cool $1 million that's got to go towards the draft class, so that's 4.7. You got another, let's say, $1.5 million that's got to go towards the practice squad, right? So that takes us from 4.7 down to what? 4.7 minus 1.5.
3.2.
All right, and that's ballpark. You still got 52nd and 53rd player initially to deal with. That's another 1.3. So what are we down to then?
Oh, math. 1.9. Ooh, getting tight.
Okay. We haven't even hit let's go ahead and wipe out at least the other $2 million for what they're going to want in season work, and they're going to need a lot more than just $2 million. For
now you have the Hayward extension, right?
Right.
Read that up.
Right. So let's key that back up to let's say the Hayward extension takes care of what they want in season space.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're still left with 1.9 of free space.
Right. Can he get it done? If JuJu gets a deal done, that's going to eat up some of that. His cap hit's going to go up.
Well, let's assume the other deals don't get done. So what's the exception? 1.25 million? What's the number?
1.25 million is the exception, right? So
okay,
you can get one player maybe. With
so
that.
in theory, if we work with a 1.9 of free space, rainy day, not rainy day, but just the free space, not including the after the Hayward extension, with 1.25 of the exception, that means the max deal you could offer a player is 1 year, 3.15 million.
So I was close.
Yeah. So
around 3.5 million, I think you could theoretically work with in that situation.
Yeah. So.
But knowing the Steelers and how Kevin Colbert wants, he would want a 2-year deal on any of these guys. That are going to earn a base of more than $1 million, regardless of this benefit, And I think, doesn't this benefit just only apply to 1-year deals too, right? I believe.
It sounds right. I am not reading the language in front of me.
But generally, if these guys want more than minimum, Colbert's going to want to get them to a 2-year deal.
And obviously these players don't want to take 2-year deals.
Right. In other words, he would want to give them that $3 million in the first year, but have a back end of another year to play with, on top of it there. Which I don't know why a lot of these players wouldn't do it anyway, because Colbert's going to cut him.
Well, the fear is they don't. He doesn't cut. They play well, and you get him for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, but Colbert's going to cut him anyway. I mean, that's why. Just look at what has happened here with Burnett. I mean, let's go down to Bostic, Burnett. Who else in recent?
Barron.
Who?
Mark Barron.
Yeah, Barron. I mean, these guys. I expect Ebron to be on the pile after 1 year. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully he does something that forces their hand to keep him and all. But anyway, I'm not opposed to getting a guy. I think the ship has sailed on Mark Barron.
Yeah, I'm not. I just have no reason to believe he'll come back. I guess I'm not going to 100% rule it out, but I don't see the compelling reason to do it.
And I think some people kind of question Snacks Harris. I think some people kind of question his dedication. I think
he looked good in the middle. I just think the team's not going to make any moves until midway through camp in August, late to August. They want to evaluate their roster, see what happens injury-wise, and they're going to stand pat for now, I think.
Let's see if I can dig up us one more question maybe here. If I can find one here. No, I think I've got most of them here out of the way, at least that are sticking out to me here. All right. Anything else you got to add on all this?
No, I think we've talked enough. Almost went 2 hours today, so we will be back on Tuesday.
All right, that sounds good then. So, in the meantime, let's see, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast @gmail.com. Are the sound levels sounding better on these shows? I'm running them through a different kind of pre-mixer here, if you will, before posting them up. Let me know if the levels on this podcast, I know Alex sounds better because he's got a new headset, and I hope to join him in that classification here in this next week here when mine arrives here. But have at least the balance and the levels or whatnot sounding better on this podcast? Let us know. And you can send all questions to theterriblepodcast @gmail.com. Also, if you like what we do and you want to support the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to the site, hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar. And for $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com. We're thinking about raising that price at some point. So, maybe by the start of the regular season, I don't know. So I just want to throw that out there on that. It's been very, very popular. $25 for 1 calendar year. You can have access to the site. Alex and I will be back on Tuesday. And until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.